how we labored late at night and how the employees would get together. And he bowled. I don't know whether anyone knew that Dick bowled or not, but
he tried.
He tried, okay. And he was always out there. Of course, I used to get my nails done, and I didn't have time to put them in the
my darling, we are up against it as clockwise, but I sure appreciate your taking time to talk to us.
Listen, you lost a good guy.
We sure do.
And he'll be missed.
Thank you very much for talking to us from Washington. Bye-bye. Bev Smith. And now, check on sports. Here's Ted.
Thank you very much, Mel. New York Jet defensive coordinator Bud Carson has a new job in the National Football League. He will be the head coach of the Cleveland Browns. He replaces Marty Schottenheimer, who quit and is now head coach of the Kansas City Chiefs. Elbow surgery could be in the future of Detroit Lion quarterback Chuck Long. Doctors feel surgery may relieve some of the pain that he has suffered since being injured. He saw limited action in 1988. Good news for Major League Baseball pitchers. The controversial balk rule has been scrapped for the upcoming season. 924 balks were called last year. The previous high was in 1987. Before the balk rule was in effect, only 306 were called. Well, the Houston Post says the Astros were turned down for the third time by the Boston Red Sox in their efforts to trade for third baseman Wade Boggs. The two sides plan to continue talking. The Astros offered pitcher Bob Knepper and Terry Poole and outfielder Kevin Bass. Jimmy Buffett and comedian actor Bill Murray have purchased the Miami Marlins. $1 million. Forget about the Cracker Jacks and start talking about serving those margaritas out there. Let's go upstairs and check with 970 WFLA traffic reporter Mr. Gary McHenry.
Thank you, Teddy. Traffic slow on the approach to the Howard Franklin Bridge this afternoon.
Norman, again, want to remind you that there is an informal salute taking place right now until 6 o'clock as you drive home. Please turn on your headlights in tribute to Dick and the wonderful creativity he gave us right here on News Radio 970 WFLA. And in addition to that, if you don't have headlights to turn on porch lights, any kind of lights. 77 degrees in Port Charlotte, 73 in Gulfport, 77 in St. Pete, Clearwater 77, Tampa 77 on News Radio 970 WFLA. Probably one of the best accolades that can be received by anyone is a tribute from someone at a competing station. And there's a gentleman on the line we'd like to get on the air now from W Light, Jay Johnson. Hello, Jay.
Hi, Captain Bell.
I can't tell you how much we appreciate your calling and participating in this show.
Well, I could help not but to do that, Captain Bell, because I've worked with Dick Norman. I guess it's been about a year since I've left the station and went over to where I am now. And I work for both your stations, as a matter of fact, WFLZ and 970 WFLA.
I remember seeing you early in those morning hours.
Yes, used to get up very early. And
yes, indeed.
Meet you in the hall for coffee.
Right.
And I'd be on the FM, you'd be on the AM. And so not only was it a pleasure working there, most of all, it was a pleasure working with Dick Norman. Dick was my boss there on the AM side. I worked for both stations. And we just had a great time together. I remember him as a funny guy, a witty guy, and most of all, a compassionate guy. When I had a problem, when I needed something, I needed time off, he always obliged me. And there was never a problem with Dick. And just one of the greatest guys in the world. And when I heard the news yesterday, I was feeding my face, as a matter of fact, Captain Bell, and I dropped my plate over my shoes. And it was just the most devastating news I'd heard in such a long, long time. And I'm really going to miss that guy.
Jay Johnson of W Light, I sure appreciate your calling in with that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Kathy Good produces Gardner in the Morning, and she had a special relationship with Dick, as we all did. And I want to get her on the air now. Kathy, are you there?
I sure am.
Say hello to Bob Schuman. You know this gentleman.
Hey, Bob.
Beside me.
How you doing, Kath?
I'm just fine. You know, I've just been taking calls all morning, listening all day yesterday and all day today. I hope the thoughts that we can share with the listeners help them as much as the thoughts that they've shared with us today. And I'd like to tell some of my favorite Dick Norman stories real quickly. I know you got a clock here. Do you want to go to news first, Mel, or?
Spoken like a true producer. Let's go to news first. I'm going to put you on hold, and we got to take a break here with Don Richards and the news.
FBI setting up a national conference of law officers who investigated Ted Bundy's crimes. No date yet. It'll be held in Virginia. Investigators will try to share information which could solve some open cases and try to understand develop a better understanding of killers like Bundy.
Special tribute to Uncle Dickie Norman. As Don said, get the headlights on till 6 o'clock. We're all going to recognize Dick Norman. And you're listening to this special edition of the Dick Norman Show right here on News Radio 970 WFLA. With us is Operations Manager Bob Schuman. On the line is Kathy Good. And Kathy, we're going to get to that story that you want to tell us about, Dick. But first, I would like Bob to tell us about this special memorial fund, if you would.
Captain, to honor Dick and the achievements he gave us in broadcasting, we've decided to establish a scholarship endowment fund in Dick's honor. And we are formally getting this thing together right now, but we are accepting donations right now. You can send your contributions to the Dick Norman Memorial Fund, care of News Radio 970 WFLA. And our address is 801 East Jackson Street, Tampa. Zip code is 33602. The fund has been designed to help some student or students who want to get into broadcasting and try to do what Dickie did to help them do that. And when we pick how the system is going to work in terms of universities, we will pass that along to you.
Okay, and now, Kathy Good, I know you have many. How about one?
One.
Story about Dick Norman.
Well, you know, Dick was such a pleasure to work with, and getting guests for his show, I could have put an eggplant on that show. He would have made it interesting. But one day after a really bad day, Dick said, come on, go to lunch. So he took me to lunch. And we were looking at the menu, and it was the infamous Turf, and I had never been there before, and he said they got this great sandwich. And I said, well, Dick, I'm not a real sandwich person. The buffet looks really good. And he says, no, get this sandwich. And I said, well, the buffet's only $1 more. Maybe I'll get he says, get the sandwich. This is great. You'll love it. And the waitress came over, and she said, what will you have? And he said, get her the sandwich, and I'll take the banquet. He went for the big one and left me out in the cold.
That is a typical Dick Norman story.
And, you know, Dick, all the girls in the building will attest that Dick liked to pinch the cheeks around the building. And last night when I stepped out of the shower, I couldn't help but laugh, and I looked up to the ceiling or the sky or whatever, and I said, well, you old fart, you finally got to see me nude. What do you think?
I'm sure you approve.
Kathy Good, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you, Captain Mel. I hope that everyone appreciates our stories as much as we appreciate their condolences. And Uncle Dickie, wherever you are, I'm sure they can hear you all the way down the hall.
Thanks.
Okay.
Bye-bye. Kathy Good, who's the producer of Gardner and Company in the mornings right here on News Radio 970 WFLA. And now, Bob Schuman, if you would introduce our next guest, Bob Quessel.
Captain, yeah, we had a chance to talk to Bob Quessel earlier today on tape. He now does the 3 to 6 p.m. shift on radio station WRC in Washington. This is kind of special because Bob knew Dickie when he was very young at WAVI in Dayton, Ohio.
For joining us from the Washington area this afternoon. We're here to talk about Dick Norman. Tell me how you came to know Dick Norman and where you worked with him.
Well, actually, I worked with Dick when I moved to Dayton, Ohio. We both worked together at a radio station called WAVI. Matter of fact, Dick Norman I think he was mornings when I got there, and I did afternoons. And then we kind of switched around, and Dick was always an amazing man. When you saw Dick Norman and you heard Dick Norman, you heard exactly the same person. They were exactly alike on the air and off the air. When Dick became very, very excited about a particular issue, he got the message across immediately on the air. But then when he came off the air, he was exactly the same way. By that I mean, when he got hot to trot on something, he went with it, and it took a long time for him to come down. When he was off. He was real, in other words. He was a real broadcaster. He cared.
Did you spend much time with Uncle Dickie outside of your radio station there in Dayton, Ohio?
Well, we used to go to these, what they called wavy nights, whereby, Steve Hall knows about this, too, because Steve was working with us also. But we'd go to these places where we'd have these wavy nights, and Dick would bring his date, because it seemed like he was always between marriages at the time. And he'd bring his date or he'd bring somebody, and we'd just have a wonderful time meeting and greeting people. Dick was always one of these guys who was exceedingly gregarious. You could go up to Dick with a problem. You could talk to Dick, and Dick would try to help you out the best way he knew how. And even if you were a listener, people would come up to Dick on the outside, and they'd start talking to him, and Dick start puffing on the pipe, you know. I don't know whether he's still smoking a pipe or not.
No, he had not been.
Oh, got
so
one of the bad habits out of the way, huh?
In that regard, he had reformed. A lot of folks wonder if Dickie was truly right-wing, truly left-wing. It was sometimes kind of hard to figure.
He was more right-wing, definitely, than he was a left-wing. That's where he and I seem to get along the best, when we have the same political views. I'm exceedingly right-wing from what they tell me. And he was just about the same, although our approaches were different. Remember, Dick was a graduate of Ohio State. He had his master's. He was in Ohio. He knew Ohio. He knew what he was doing, and he knew the political scene also, because Dick had a background in news. Because when I worked with Dick on the air, and I also worked with Dick when Dick was a newsman, and I worked with Dick when Dick was my program director. So when you talk about Uncle Dickie, we never called him Uncle Dickie. We called him something like that, but it wasn't Dickie.
Maybe Sir when he was your program director.
That
huh?
too, yeah.
Bob, as you look back on the times you spent with Dick Norman, is there one particular story that you can tell on the air that stands out in your mind about Dick?
Well, no, I can't do it because I frankly wouldn't be able to air it on the air. But he was a rascal, that son of a gun. He left the radio station because he had a particular bumper sticker on the back of his automobile.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to tell you what it said on the back of the automobile, but
I can imagine.
It was rather interesting, and everybody at the station said, "You're in for it," and Dick says, "I'm going to keep it on because I truly believe this." And he had this certain bumper sticker that the boss went absolutely nuts over. And Dick left under not too friendly terms, but as you know, he always bounced on his feet. He always came back.
Landed on his feet. Did the bumper sticker deal with cats, per se?
As a matter of fact.
I've heard about that bumper sticker.
Yeah. I think the whole world heard about that one.
Bob, you know, around 970 WFLA, Dickie was always a cheerleader, always up when something happened that affected the staff of the radio station. He was always the one to pump us up. Was he that way in Dayton?
Oh, he was always that way. Dick was the type of a guy that would just yell and scream at the top of his lungs when something was going either good or bad. He was he let it all hang out, you know. In other words, you don't hold it in. When you were around Norman, you knew where you stood, as I said before. You know where you stand when you're talking with Dick Norman, because if you were down, and when he was my program director, for example, we'd sit in there and we'd go round and round. If I had a problem, we'd go round and round. That's the way he was. He was a very intricate, a very interesting individual. I cannot look at the bad things because there weren't that many bad things with Dick Norman. I always try to remember the good things about him, and there's plenty of them.
I remember the first time I heard him, Bob, I was in Cincinnati at a radio station, and he went to WCKY.
Yes.
And the first time I heard him, I thought, who is that guy? He sounds obnoxious, sounds like a hardware salesman. And then I listened, and I was hooked.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's the way a lot of people have come to know Dick Norman. To his fans, to his listeners here in the Tampa Bay area, Bob, is there anything that you can say to them? I wonder how Dickie would like to be thought of. Any comments?
The only way I can sum it up is to say Dick Norman was real. Whether you liked Dick Norman, whether you disliked Norman, whether you liked his caustic wit, he was a very witty individual, a very intelligent individual, but you were listening to an individual who was real. That's about the best way I can describe it. Sometimes he said outlandish things, maybe to get you to think. But by God, he was real. And that's the best thing you can put as an epitaph. He was real.
Bob Quessel from radio station WWRC, Washington, D.C. I would like to sincerely thank you for taking time out this afternoon to help us salute the late Dick Norman.
My pleasure, my friend. My pleasure. I'm sorry he's gone. He was an asset to broadcasting.
He certainly was indeed. Bob, thank you.
And now let's get a check on sports. Here's Ted Webb.
Thank you, Captain Mel and Bob. The Browns have named Bud Carson.
Friends here at the station, Jeff Lawrence, our production man. Jeff, are you there?
Hi, Mel. How are you?
How you doing?
I'm doing fine. I was curious today when I heard Bob Lassiter and everybody talking about how they were going to be turning their lights on between 3 and 6, and I wholeheartedly support that. I think it's a great idea. I had nowhere to go today to speak of, but thought just for the heck of it, I'd flick my lights on the car and do a little driving around just to check out the sort of support that there was. for a very close friend of mine and a guy that I thought was a tremendous talk show host. I stopped at a small shopping center near Almerton Road, and as I was on the telephone, a gentleman drove up with his headlights on, and completely unconsciously I said, "Excuse me, sir, your lights are on." And he says, "Yeah, it's because of Dick Norman." And then I went, "Oh, that's right." I'd like you to talk with a man named Chuck Fletcher, if you don't mind, Mel, just for a second.
Not at all.
One real fast thing is, I think the reason that many of us feel like we do right now is very much like Lionel stated this midday, is the fact that people many times don't listen for as many hours a day to their own fathers or to their own grandparents or to their own relatives as they do to a talk show host. And that makes things a lot more intimate. You get to know much more in detail things about their lives and things that make them tick than you do about your own relatives. And that kind of gives you cause to sit and reflect. Chuck Fletcher just happened to drive into the store, and I told him over here, and he'd just like to say hi. Okay, Mel?
Okay.
And then I'll let you go. God bless you and have a good time. Cheers, Chuck Fletcher. Mel?
Yes, Chuck.
How you doing?
Very good.
Good. I just drove in and had my lights on. He yelled over to me, and I've been listening to Bob all day, and of course I was listening to his tribute to Dick this afternoon. I thought it was a great thing. We're going to miss him.
We all are, Chuck.
Right.
We appreciate that, and everybody who has their headlights on, and everybody who has their porch lights on, and the traffic guys that are flying over in formation, all of that. That's going to happen at 5 o'clock, by the way, so keep your eyes peeled on the sky.
Okay.
And thanks to Jeff Lawrence, too,
Thank
for
you
his
very much.
words.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. And now, news headlines with Don Richards.
An effort to share information about Ted Bundy's murders, life terms for the second freezer murder defendant, and prosecutors hoping for a life behind bars for the 4 members of the EJ gang found guilty today. An evaluation of Hillsborough Administrator Larry Brown results in a fair to good report card. We'll have details at 5. Don
News Radio 970 WFLA. Got word that a caller to the newsroom says looking at the traffic out her window, somewhere between 1 car in 4 and 1 car in 3 has the headlights on 4th Street North in St. Pete. And another lady says driving home from Clearwater to St. Pete, she estimates 40% of the cars are using headlights, often with people flashing their lights to get others to turn them on. And as we say, there is an informal salute to Uncle Dickie Norman taking place until 6 o'clock this afternoon. We urge you to drive home with the headlights on in tribute to Dick Norman. And now, this is a gentleman who is now the public information officer of the Tampa Police Department. He is one of ours, though. He started in broadcasting and now has this job with the police department. I'd like to welcome to our program Steve Cole. Hello, Steve.
Hey, Mel. How you doing?
Good.
Dick and I got to know each other a couple of months ago. I invited him to go out on an undercover drug bust, and I gave him all of about 30 minutes notice. And he said, pick me up at the front door. I want to go. And he spent about, a lot of the media will come out maybe for 30 minutes or an hour at the most, but Dick spent several hours out there. We put him in an undercover van, and he was amazed at how stupid some of the crack cocaine, the people that were buying it were. And I don't want to go into all the detail of that afternoon, but he used it for his program the next day. And he always afforded me an opportunity on his show when things started getting controversial about the police department and everything. He always went out of his way to make sure I got on to get our 2 cents in. And he was just a friend of law enforcement. And last evening there was a retirement party for one of the undercover guys, and everybody there was talking about it. And I just wanted to let you know that all of law enforcement is definitely going to miss him, and we feel like we've lost one of our own.
He certainly was a friend to the police and law enforcement officers everywhere, and we certainly appreciate your calling in and expressing these sentiments.
I got one last thing I want to do here. I think everybody's been going through shock and anger, sadness. I didn't know how to handle it last night. I stayed up quite late, and it really bothered me. And I put something down in words, and it may be a little corny, but I just want to read it. And this is my little, I guess, tribute to Dick Norman. Dick Norman was not a boastful man. He was a very ordinary man. In a very simple way, Dick made people think every day. He sometimes sounded like a mean old fart, but we knew he had a huge heart. Dick would get a topic going. People got mad and learned something without even knowing. Dick didn't care much about his looks. His knowledge was based on a love for books. He'd make fun of his pudgy little tummy, and then he'd sell you some Skyline chili because it was so yummy. Dick could rant and rave with the best. His 3 hours was always a fest. Every day from 3 to 6, it was always a wild mix. Ultra-conservative, Dick squared off with the left-wingers. He always had some barbs and zingers. Going home with Dick made your day just a little better. But now, well, it just doesn't seem right. Our Uncle Dick won't be on tonight. But he wouldn't want us to be stuffy and sad. Dick would say, what the heck, be glad. I've left this world, and you will all join me soon. I'm doing my show on the other side of the moon. Don't ask and wonder why. I'm happy being a talk show host way up high. So that's my little salute to Dick. We're going to miss him, but life goes on, and Dick will want us to all go on.
Thank you very much for that, Steve Cole from the Tampa Police Department. We certainly appreciate your participation in this memorial program. Bye-bye. Steve Cole of the Tampa Police Department, the Public Information Officer. And now, you know, at most radio stations, those of us who've been in broadcasting any length of time know that somehow or other the foreigners at the station were the guys who went out and sold time on the air. But here we are, one close-knit family, and the depth of feeling in the sales department is every bit as strong as it is in the programming department. And one of those gentlemen who goes out and hits the bricks, as they say, is Tom Doyle, and he was a good friend of Dick Norman. Tom, can you tell us something about your experience with Dick?
You know, Dick was the guy that a lot of us had fun with every day. He was a real rascal, and I think of a lot of times we'll go out on the street and we might be talking with a client or a friend at a party. You know, people ask you about what's happening at WFLA, and a lot of times I get asked what's Dick Norman really like, and I think one thing we've heard continuously through all this testimony is Dick on the air was very, very much like Dick off the air. But the one thing about working at a radio station, a lot of times the air personalities, the talk show hosts, come in, they do their thing, and they're out, and they have their own separate lives. Dick was like one of those quarterbacks that the linemen loved because he liked to get down there in the trenches. He could relate. And Dick always had a walkthrough of our department and other departments around the station every day, and made sure that everyone was doing well and everyone was happy. Dick was a very happy man lately. He had everything rolling in his direction. He was very lovable and really cared about everyone that he worked with. And I think a lot of us wondered where Dick was yesterday when he didn't make his walkthrough with his big Coke in the morning. And for us, it's a great loss, and I certainly express my sympathies to Lynn and his family, because I know in my relationship with him how much they meant to him. And he was a total professional broadcaster, but he was also a total dad and a very, very much a Renaissance man.
Tom Doyle of the WFLA Sales Department. We're going to take a break with the news and be back. Continue our tribute to Uncle Dickie Norman. Stay tuned.
Dickie Norman, Don Richards at the anchor desk, Ted Webb on sports, Gary McHenry's unparalleled airborne traffic. Stay with us. We'll do everything necessary to make your afternoon a good one. I know more about broadcasting than you do.
I formerly was a PR man in record promotion in 2000.
It's no wonder you're a telephone solicitor. You've become a prostitute twice in your life, haven't you?
Not really. I walked with Martin Luther King.
Big deal. So did I.
Wait, just a moment, sir.
Shut up. You don't have any rights. I'm the only one that has rights. Shut up. You ought to be shot.
When they made inflammatory comments.
Shut up. I'm the only one that makes inflammatory comments. You are a whore. You are a pimp, Harold.
No, you're...
Think about it, Harold. Money is what fuels religion, Helen. You don't tell me that you go to church and they don't ask you for money.
Well, they have to ask for money.
Of course, and so does Martin Scorsese. He wants to make money. So does the church.
If they don't make money to put it in their own pocket, they help the poor.
The hell they don't. Everyone who works in the church puts money in their own pocket. How the hell do you think they live? 7 minutes past the hour of 3 o'clock. o'clock, citizens, all the way till 6 here with a cast of thousands. This is Dick Norman inviting you to tune in to Santa Claus. The jolly old elf will be on the radio for the youngsters right here on WFLA and right on the right day, Christmas Eve.
So hold your position if you will, Dick Norman. Let's go to Ted Webb in sports.